exciting part, which is waste conversion technologies. Now, this is my absolute favorite part of recycling in general and circularity. And when we think about supply chain management, this is how we get to the end. So I'm really pleased to announce our first speaker, Richard Olliver. He's the president and CEO of Aplethora Vectors, and he's got an amazing talk for us on the snapshot of diverse waste plastics to energy projects and developments in the United States. And as you guys know, this is a pretty big deal because other countries are a little bit further ahead of us than we've been getting to. So I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. Yeah. Oh. Oh, yeah. And we have everyone to turn off our phones to silent.
Thank you, Andrea. First, I'd like to thank Cirque and Gene Jones for inviting me here. It's a privilege to speak before you. Since arriving last night, I should share with you, my experiences here have been almost surreal. Last night at the bar, I was having a drink with Snow White, and in walked a ham and cheese on rye sandwich and sat next to us. And the bartender immediately ran over and said, "I'm sorry, we don't serve food here." Thank you. I'll spend a little bit more time on this than might be necessary, but basically the concept here of this presentation is it should give you an idea of what's actually happening behind the scenes pretty much in your industry, which up to date now has been predominantly recycling of plastics. My key message is there's a new tidal wave coming in that takes the technology basis from recycling into conversion of waste plastics into valuable products, including typically transportation fuels, hydrogen, methanol, ammonia, and another product which you haven't heard too much about, DME, which has been used in China as a transportation fuel for the last 10 years and is growing dramatically internationally. All of these products are essentially going to be classified as renewable by government standards, and therefore will have a huge array of government supports that will create a financial envelope that will typically make these projects very, very attractive. The information I'm presenting is drawn from our proprietary database of over 200 process technologies worldwide that in some shape or form are in this business. And out of that, I've picked about roughly 50 that focus on plastics as the target of what I'll be presenting to you. It's essentially dedicated to looking at two different technologies. One is called gasification. The other is pyrolysis. And these are technologies that have been in practice around the world for, in some cases, more than 100 years. And it ignores things like anaerobic digestion, landfill gas, and other things. So the focus is primarily on these particular technologies. Essentially, the presentation will be technology neutral. We have no interest in financial or otherwise in any of the technologies I'm presenting, and so you can consider it neutrally based. And importantly, do not use this information for investment purposes without consulting with me first. And in any event, do not use it for investment. Significantly, what are the current forces at work around the world that create this atmosphere to make this industry start to move ahead? I won't read them all. You can see for yourself what they are. A lot of common vernacular and nomenclature that's becoming more and more obvious and more in the mainstream. To me, for this group in this room, the most significant one is landfill diversion. Landfill diversion, which simply says that everything that used to go to landfills in the form of waste of any shape or form, including plastics, people are now looking at intercepting it and pulling some of those waste materials out and creating businesses, which means they are economically viable, economically profitable, to capture waste plastics and make other products and things of that nature. So I would say if you leave with nothing more than understanding what landfill diversion is, you'll get a good grasp of what's going on in your industry. This is a little outdated, but it shows you internationally from the IEA what certain countries have done over the last years in terms of creating projects that convert waste to energy, mostly power, by the way, in many of these countries. And you can see on the left, it's Japan is certainly a world leader. They got it early on of how they could really be careful about the use of all their resources and using them wisely. A lot of other countries, as you can see, have done far less. And unfortunately, you see the U.S. in the far end that is just awakening now, I think, in recent years, to the wisdom of taking your waste and using it to convert to higher value products rather than just simply throw it in a pile. A little brief advertisement. I have partnered with a company called Energy Transaction Advisors, that's ETA. We do have a booth. We're flying the ETA flag in our booth, so don't look for me as Aplethora Vectors. Importantly, we're a consulting firm that has agreed to partner in this industry, which is waste to energy broadly. For the specifics of this conference, we're focusing on plastics conversion. And collectively, we have teams of people that are true experts in this field. We've been generally following it for over 20 years in terms of the evolution of gasification and pyrolysis to be implemented in this industry. And we're set up, our main jewel is due diligence for people who want to make investments. And I think we have excellent capabilities and skill sets to provide all kinds of information and solutions within this industry. Now you're going to say, what is this man trying to do to us now? What is he showing us for? Hold it here very briefly. This is not a Venn diagram. This is a flow diagram of sorts used to distinguish the various chemical, thermal, processing routes for different materials containing hydrocarbons. And the two that we're focusing on are in the middle of there again, it's pyrolysis and gasification. And you can study this in the privacy of your own home later on. So. This is the core of the presentation. It's pretty much an arbitrary listing of roughly a dozen technologies, all of whom have websites. All of everything I show there is public information. It's selected from a list of roughly 50 similar type technologies and processes that are available publicly. And basically what I'm going to do is just give you a snapshot of each of these technologies so that you can get a sense of what their promotional pitch is. Each of these technologies has their own little twist, pretty much, in terms of how they get from feedstock to products. And their stage of development, in some cases, is rather distinctive. Some of these are in early stage. Some of them actually have commercial units that are operating. And if you look very carefully, even though I talk about projects in the U.S., I've drawn from some European-type technologies who are already doing projects in Europe, but also are quietly looking to do similar projects in the United States. I should point out that this Excel spreadsheet actually has another roughly 8 columns on the far right that I don't show. That information includes websites, includes key contacts, telephone numbers, emails, an occasional comment about the status of the technology. I'm happy to provide that information to you for anyone who either stops by the booth or sends us an email requesting that information. And it's worth having. It'll save you a lot of time if you have an interest in pursuing further information on any of these. First one on the list is Resynergy. They're very, very unique. Their pitches, they take waste plastics and they zap it into vapor and capture clean oil in the form of transport fuels. I think they do diesel and also a lighter cut of transport fuels. Significantly, and it's within their website, they use microwave technology to generate their thermocap, which is very, very unique, and it's pretty cool, and I think indicative of the innovation that's creeping into this industry. Enerchem has been around for probably over 20 years. They started their business mainly as wood products to ethanol, and they have a commercial unit up in Canada, and they're very, very well proven in terms of some of the early attributes of their technology. Recently, they recognized the need for taking other wastes and converting it, and also to products other than ethanol. And so they are looking at their technology as a premise for pretty much of a biochemical refinery, which I think, frankly, as this industry expands, will become more indicative of the way the industry expands. Agilyx originally started as a pure plastics recycling company, and they've operated for several years very successfully doing recycling. But as they've studied the landscape in the industry, as is evident here, they've also developed a new business called Cyclyx, which essentially extends that into just the recycling into developing some end products, which again typically are transportation type fuels or other materials that frankly are saleable and can create an economic envelope using the plastic waste as a feedstock. CHC Technology. These folks have been pretty much under the radar now for about 10 years. They've got, I've talked to their president a number of times. They've got, I think, a very solid, interesting chemical processing technology, which not only looks at plastics, but looks at the textile industry, mainly carpeting, and as a main source of destructing and, or if you will, converting to products. And their products include production of syngas, which then you can use to make hydrogen, methanol, ammonia, and other things. And I suspect you'll see a little bit more public visibility of these folks in the near term. Braven Environmental, of all places based in Yonkers, New York, but have a commercially operating plant in Zebulon, North Carolina, where they produced over 12,000 tons of waste plastic, consumed it to make 2.1 million gallons of transportation fuels. They're also very low-key, very well under the radar, but obviously have a commercial plant, which for those of you in the financial arena know that's got significant value in terms of the likelihood of financing relative to having a prototype or a lab installation. Ways to H, they advertise themselves as the clean, green energy machine. And they, again, take plastics, waste plastics, and convert it to a number of variable products and provide another interesting approach to converting to things of value. Shell Chemicals, you've heard of them, I'm sure. I think one of the folks from that company, there he is there. He's going to be telling you a lot more about what they're doing than I will. But in simple terms, public information shows they've teamed with Blue Alp, which I believe is a European technical firm that looks at converting waste plastics to other valuable materials. And they're going to be an important component in this industry because I think anytime a major oil or chemical company teams with the technology, they have the resources, both technically and financially, to make a significant impact, I should say, in the industry. Encina Development also has a new technology, and they're looking at specializing in taking plastic waste and converting them to two general streams of product materials, one of which is the BTX aromatics components, which is a valuable part of the chemical industry, as well as independently producing propylene, which is also an interesting and valuable chemical product. Honeywell UOP, for those of you that are not familiar with it, Honeywell is a major conglomerate involved in all kinds of business. They also own UOP, which is one of the predominant chemical thermal process licensing companies in the world. They have a huge portfolio which originally was based in the oil refining industry, shifted into chemicals, and now is now focusing more on looking at the environmental, the waste to energy, and including waste to plastics. They've been around for a long time and have a huge resources, I think, in order to create a foundation for furthering their interests. They call their technology the upcycle, just as a matter of interest. Lummus New Hope is actually an operating facility. I believe it's in Tyler, Texas, and they convert waste plastics using pyrolysis to make a material known as pyrolysis oil, which then can be further upgraded into transportation fuels or other materials. Lummus also is a major licensor of chemical and oil refining process technologies, and I think is unique in the sense that that's their business strategy, is to engage this technology and try and make it available to third parties who want to do capital projects using their process. Vow is European. I'm not sure. I think they're Swedish or Norwegian, forgive me, but they are creating a star in Europe with similar type projects, and they think have a very interesting process that can take different types of feedstocks, one of which is waste plastics, and convert it to a wide array of options for their ultimate products. Again, their main activity is in Europe, but there's indications that they're quietly looking at having some facilities built using their technology in the USA. EnviroPower Renewable has, again, its own technology to convert waste biomass broadly, inclusive of waste plastics, essentially aimed at producing fuel oils and, if you will, other transportation hydrocarbon fuels. And finally, it's just a repeat of what I showed you before. Again, our firm, Aplethora Vectors, is partnered with ETA, Energy Transaction Advisors, and we offer these comprehensive services to anyone that needs a little help in terms of progressing your program. And we'd love to have you come by the booth, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. I want to say thank you to all. That's my contact information. My partner, who's in the audience, Scott Vanderau, will be at our booth. And again, come by with a business card or send me an email, and we'll give you the broader Excel spreadsheet. So with that, I say thank you for listening, and I'll answer questions a little bit later.